happening? It's Chris with 80/20 CRM. Today I am bringing you a little bit of detail on, what are we covering today? Let me check. Picklist Value Sets. Just had to look at my notes. All right, yes, Picklist Value Sets, really important component or piece of the Salesforce architecture. Probably will give you trouble at some point in time if you're an admin. And those of you that have used them before love them and hate them, a little bit of both. Primarily because of record types. So if you, an example, you add a picklist value and you think, man, why isn't it showing up? If you have record types, you probably hasn't been added to that record type. So something to keep in mind. We'll try and give you some tips and tricks to that. So thanks for being here. Thanks for learning 80/20 CRM, the platform built by Get Real for you high performers out there, which we know you are. And we're always trying to help get a little bit more advanced in what we're doing, make your life easier if we can. Okay, let's jump into it. So if you are on the home page here, if you're an admin or have the access to it, you should see in setup here. Let's go to, there are two places you're gonna see Picklist Value Sets. Number one is your global value sets, right? These are ones that are used across different objects and can be referenced from different places. So there are lots of global value sets in here. You can see some of these. Let's go next page. Got L through R, next page, R through Y. So let's jump into, how about agent status or appointment status? Let's see. Let's look at a really common one that people like. Let's go to motivations. Now these motivations are many of the different motivations or distresses that a property and or owner might have that would motivate them to want to sell or to be into a position to need to sell. So you can see lots of pick list values here. You have the value on the left and the API name on the right. So if we go to edit those, you'll see the label. Really what was called the value is really the label. And then the API name is really the, I would call the legal name, the platform name that it's going to use to reference those. So we try and keep them the same when we can. It just makes it a little bit easier for importing data and to keep track of it. But they're very simple. I can deactivate them and that will just push them off the list and they'll stop showing up in your pick list sets. You can see this motivations field is used on the lead prospect, property transactions, property, lead, and opportunity. It is in a multi-select field in that case. Doesn't have to be, but in all of those fields it is, because they can have multiple motivations. I can also delete a value. If I delete it, it's going to ask me what I want to replace it with. And it can be a blank value or it can be another one. That way all of those values throughout the system will get replaced with your new value. So if you're just trying to change the name, I recommend just editing it. You don't have to worry about it there. If you're not sure you want to delete it, just deactivate it if you don't want it in the list anymore. You can also add new. You can copy paste a list. These need to be a single value per line, no comma separation, nothing there. And if you want to automatically add them to all of your record types, right? So the REI record type, the retail, buyer, seller, etc. Click this box here and that will automatically make sure your new values get pushed over to all your record types. That way you don't have to go back in and look and find all your record types that it belongs to and add them back in. You can also reorder them. We often use alphabetical, which you can just check this box here and it will automatically sort them alphabetically for you, or I can move them around as I need to. If you want to set a default value from here, you can. Each record type can also set its own default value. So you don't have to do it from here. So maybe you want a default value in REI and you want a different default value for a value for a retail record type. It's an example. All right. And then if this is really useful, just going to call this out. The printable view allows you to copy and paste these, and maybe you want to paste all these values into a spreadsheet. For example, you want to use it as a validation, like a pick list in a sheet. Maybe you're importing data or you're cross-referencing and you want to transform some data. It makes it easy to access them there. And then also replace. So if you want to swap out values, then you can go ahead and say, hey, anything that used to be 55 plus, Now I want to change it to this other value or replace it with blank values. So it's a good way to swap them to something else if you need to. So that's the global pick list values. The values you've deactivated, you'll see here in inactive values. You can always reactivate them or do what you need to from there. And then you notice that there are colors. You can assign different chart colors. So if you want specific charts and dashboards have certain colors, you can apply those there. Useful in some instances. And then you'll see which one is the default. So that's the global value sets. The other value sets or pick list values are going to show up directly on the object, and these ones are not global. Now, this one that I'm going to show you is a little bit of a unique guy, unique fella. Lead source. This one is mostly global. Even though it's directly on the lead and managed from the lead, when you make changes here, it will propagate to the account in other places that also are using the lead source value. So it's got some unique things happening behind it. You can see we've got inactive values here, and we've got these guys in here, and we could activate these if we wanted to, or we can delete them if we're not using them. I can just the same options. I can create new, I can reorder, replace, printable view, etc. So I can update those pick list values. If I want to add validation rules to make sure the right values are being used, I can do that. Or if I want to add dependencies, so I can say I can make another field dependent on a certain lead source. Like, hey, if it's direct mail lead source, I can only add, these other pick list values. If you had another value set, you could specify those, which ones are available for it. A common example of that is the transaction coordinator status. Usually is dependent on the disposition type. So if it's novation, the TC's got different steps than if it's a wholesale or a flip or a rental. They're going to do slightly different things, and so we've made that a dependency so you can identify, hey, they've got these 5 steps on this certain exit strategy or these 10 on this one, just to keep it in sync and aligned. So that's a dependency that you can add there. So that's a really quick tidbit on these value sets. I'm going to jump into the record types briefly and show you what I mean about making sure your value sets are correct. So record types, what they really allow you to do is apply unique page layouts, and they also allow you to change which pick list values show up on those page layouts. So an example is lead source. Let's go back to that one. You can see here, I can remove, say, hey, I don't want my REI, my residential REI record type, I don't want the MLS lead source to show up, for example. I can just move it off the list and then it's not going to show up. Or if I want to set a default, I want to say, hey, everything's coming from Google right now, so let's just default it there, make sure we have that data. Then you can add a default value and save that for the record type. All right, so hopefully that helps on your pick list values. There are ways to grab that schema, and we can help you with that. We can help you get all of your pick list values across the system if you'd like. Just let us know, and we can help you get those. You can review them, make any changes or tweaks you want to. There are a few special case pick list values in here. I'm going to go ahead and show you those. And those are around the lead processes and the sales processes. So the lead process is what identifies your path at the top of a lead, right? So this is what says for residential REI, these are the lead statuses that I want to show across the top, the path I want to have. So if you said, hey, you know what? I don't want to have nurturing on my REI lead path, I can move that off the list. So, and these are required. You have to have a lead process, a unique lead process for each record type. And you can set a different default one here. So instead of going into the record type, you'll notice there is no lead status, not the original lead status field on that record type. You go here to lead processes. And so if you've changed your lead statuses and you're like, hey, they're not showing up, come here and you'll be able to update those. The other one is sales processes. And let's just make sure I can find it. And let's go into retail seller. And here you can see the opportunity stage, the status of that, and the pipeline value or forecast. So is it, 10 and the probability. So we've got nurturing is considered open. It's 10% probability of closing at that point, and it's considered a pipeline stage. Scheduling, open, 10% pipeline. Let's jump to, if we get it under agreement, it's still considered open, but now it's 50% probability, and it's a best case scenario. And continuing on, let's jump up. We get it under contract. It's still open, but it's 90% probability of closing, and we're committing this to the pipeline. We're saying, hey, this is going to happen. Closing, 98% commit, and then closed won, 100% closed lost, hey, 0% probability of that revenue, and it's omitted from my forecast or pipeline. So that's to give you an idea. I can look at a pipeline view. So when I'm looking at my forecast analysis or inspections, I can see my pipeline deals, my best case deals, yeah, these are likely going to happen, and my commits, like, yep, these are definitely happening. And then I can see my closed and omitted deals. And what it does is it takes your revenue from each of those deals. I know I'm going out, I shouldn't, but I just always do, going a little bit off the beaten path here. It takes your probability here, multiplies your revenue by that probability, and that's what it uses for your forecast, so that you're not overestimating that revenue. Because we say, hey, we're probably going to get 10% of these deals that are in the scheduling stage, for example. But by the time they get to showings and offers, we're going to close at least 60% of those. So helps you be more accurate in your forecasting. So that is your Picklist values. We've covered global values. We covered values on the object fields themselves. A little bit about dependencies if you want to set that up, and then your processes for your lead status and opportunity stage. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out to us anytime. We're happy to help. We want to make sure that your system is running the way you want it to. So thanks again for joining. This is Chris Young with 80/20 CRM by Get Real, and we'll talk to you soon.